So SESAME goes through the exact same steps as Kerberos. I log in, and instead of communicating with a KDC, I'm communicating with an authentication server. Now, that authentication server, once I am authenticated, will allow me to communicate to not a TGS, but an authentication attribute server. So it's the same kind of functionality, but they use different labels. And it's not tickets that are going back and forth. It's called PACs, Privilege Attribute Certificates. And where the authentication or the asymmetric cryptography comes in is that there's digital signatures on the communication that's going back and forth. So you have to have asymmetric cryptography to be able to carry out digital signatures. And that's the main difference between Kerberos and SESAME, is that SESAME is actually using digital signatures to validate who just sent it some information. So if you're not familiar with digital signatures, that's something we will cover in cryptography. So SESAME, same thing as Kerberos really, but it uses asymmetric cryptography, and it calls the same types of components that carry out basically the same type of functionality, different names, like the Privilege Attribute Server instead of the TGS, a PAC, a Privilege Attribute Certificate instead of a ticket. Now, the reason that SESAME was even created was to deal with or overcome some of the what was seen as security issues with Kerberos. The goal was, if you integrate asymmetric and require digital signatures at each point, that provides more security, more authentication between the components that are communicating. But SESAME never, it didn't really win the war. Kerberos won the war. That's what's used most in most environments.